thank you so much for coming to this inaugural, I suppose, meetup. I'm Linda. I've probably met like half of you at least already. I've been at TPXimpact for the last year, and but prior to that, kind of a bad smell around the local digital world. And since joining, in the aftermath of COVID, we've really felt that we haven't had enough of these spaces where we can just shoot the breeze and share work in progress as well. Like one of our motivating North Stars is that we're trying to promote the collaborative commons for local public services. And we're super lucky to be working on loads of really cool projects at the moment, and want to be able to leverage the hive mind. Like, it's really cool to see so many of the co-opetition, I suppose, here tonight. And we've collaborated with you on projects with a number of local authorities, and I don't know if Johnny's here tonight, but we're starting to do lots of work with DLUHC, local digital program, and Stockton and Public are there. So the more we can have these fora to work in the open, like the more appropriate it is for us to be collaborating. It's so important, and we're eager to do our part in being good members of the community. So on that note, unfortunately one of our project leads is sick today, so you're going to miss out on the retrofit one until next time. But we have 5 lightning talks by 5 great people. Some of them are really early stage work in progress projects. No worries. That is a really useful reminder. Please, everyone, turn off your mobile phones, put them on silent. We are recording. So we're trying to do like 5, well, it was going to be 6 by 5, so 5 by 5 minute talks. We might therefore be slightly generous to our 5 speakers and let them go 1 minute over. But to maximize conversation in the room, we're not going to have a panel. Instead, we've got these 5 stations going clockwise around the room. So first speaker at station 1, second speaker at station 2. It's a mystery adventure, like orienteering. Go find your talk of most interest, or wander between them and dump your ideas, contribute your node knowledge so as to make those projects more impactful. We hope to advertise further in advance next time, but mindful that there will be people who wanted to be here, knew about it, and couldn't get here. We're going to record all the talks, so be wary of the camera, don't cross it, and apparently everything I say, anytime we come near a mic, it will be picked up there on constantly until the master switches them off. And I think that's the main thing. We're going to send you, if you have permitted us on the registration link, a little feedback form in the hope that you might suggest improvements, subsequent talks, like projects that you're working on, and general feedback on how vaguely useful all of this was. So without further ado, and sticking to time, can I hand you over to Pippa Savill from DLUHC, who's the head of comms and engagement for the local digital program. So we thought an apt starting point for this meetup, and she'll tell you about like a super brand new project on Sprint 1 to stand back and look at the impact of the local digital declaration to date. So on that note, welcome.
Do you want me over there? No.
Do people want us to use a mic? Are we good without mic? Yeah, okay.
I'll try and project to the back of the room. So I'm just going to start by asking a couple of questions. So who here, be brutally honest, has heard of the local digital declaration? Okay, good number. Who here has read the local declaration? Who can remember what's in the declaration? Okay, that's why we're all here today. So to try and keep to the 5 minutes, so very quickly, so what is local digital? We're a dedicated team within the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. Local digital was established in 2018 to lay the foundations for local public services for the future, and supports the local digital movement through funding, through events, training, and cyber. And both the team and the local digital program have grown hugely over the last year, and we're really proud of what we've achieved so far, but also know we've got a long way to go. So just a quick snapshot of things that we're really proud of over the last 4 years. So we've awarded funding now to 61 projects through local digital fund. We've supported local government to respond to things like the pandemic, and we awarded 11 projects through the COVID-19 challenge. We have delivered digital skills training to more than 3,000 council staff, and we've issued a huge amount of grant funding as well as technical expertise to support with cyber remediation. And now I'm going to move on to talking about the local digital declaration. So the local digital declaration is a shared ambition for the future of local public services. It was written back in 2018 by a collective of 45 local authorities, sector bodies and other government departments, and it outlines our goals and commitments to local digital. Any public sector and non-profit organisation is also welcome to sign the declaration, and so far it's been signed by more than 300 local authorities and other organisations as well. And it brings together, as it says on the screen, the commitment to designing user-centred services, using technology as an enabler, protecting citizens' privacy and security, and most importantly, delivering better value for money. So the policy, funding, technology, everything has changed since 2018, and we're very aware of that. There's been publications of things like the National Data Strategy, UK Digital Strategy, and cyber strategies as well. As you can see from this quote on the screen, feedback from some councils suggests that they struggle to put the principles of the declaration into practice after they sign the declaration. And we did really like this quote from some user research we did where they said, feels like I'm standing on a platform of a train station and this local digital declaration train comes along. I get to look for the windows and see the stuff going on, but the train goes off again. So reviewing the digital declaration. With the support of TPXimpact, Local Digital are undertaking a discovery to independently assess the impact of the declaration. The discovery is gathering insight into the understanding of the declaration across the public sector. It's going to document the experience of signatories, and it's going to provide an opportunity to listen to a range of different perspectives and help to develop recommendations in the direction that we're going in. And yeah, basically we need your help. So we are working with TPX, as I said, to carry out lots of stakeholder engagement and user research. But as a starting point here, really keen to gather just some initial feedback on a couple of questions. Things about what the core purpose of the local digital community should be. How could a new, improved, better, other declaration enable you to deliver great services? And what barriers or challenges do you face when putting things into practice?
Cool. I think that's everything. I think you get to answer these questions at station 1, so take note.
So all rush.
Okay. And sticking with the local digital, local digital program and what they're thinking about in reinventing themselves, I'm going to hand you over momentarily to Niall Morahan, who's working on the very beginnings of the Future Councils pilot.
Thanks. Hey guys, I'm Niall, so I'm a design lead on the Future Councils team, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about Future Councils. So as Pippa just covered there, we're almost 5 years since the Local Digital Declaration, and in that time there's been a lot of successes, but there's also a sense that making improvements to one service at a time hasn't maybe driven that broader transformation across the council. And so to tackle that, we're launching a new programme, which is Future Councils. The goal is to create replicable pathways that other councils can follow by 2025, and we're starting with a set of 8 councils, giving an amount of funding and looking at working on those bigger org-wide factors and deeper kind of things across the organisation as well. The kind of questions we're asking are, what are the common cultural, structural, governance obstacles to councils evolving? How can these be overcome? And is there a role for central government in helping to shape the conditions for councils to thrive? The vision is creating conditions for modern, resilient councils across England. And by that we mean councils that are fast and responsive, delivering services that are effective, relevant, clear and accessible, and resilient councils that are resistant to cyber attack and future threats, sustainable and cost effective. That is going to allow councils to anticipate new needs and create better outcomes for residents and communities, happy, healthy, empowered people. But today there's a sense that we're not there yet, and we can all see across councils services that might not be those things, and also, technology that might not be where we need it to be in order to thrive and to move into that kind of future state. But underneath that gap, there's a sense that there are these lurking systemic challenges that are blocking councils from getting there. And that's what we're really interested in finding and getting enough detail on that to kind of come up with meaningful interventions that can unlock progress. So what are these systemic challenges? These are kind of our hypotheses that we have at the moment based on the experience that we've had to date. And what we're going to do is take these and deepen them over the course of this pilot. So stuff like leadership, vision, and cultural buy-in. Is there buy-in to digital as an answer to core challenges that the council has, or is it kind of seen as peripheral and the focus on quick wins? Skills and workforce, can councils be competitive in attaining and retaining the people that we need? Fragmentation, working across silos, new forms of governance, and then also having a healthy market and ecosystem where we're not locked into small sets of providers that makes it difficult to change. And of course, I'm speaking to a room of experts here, so these are going to be really familiar to you all. What's interesting is when we look at how do these play out in a council. So we've looked at 4 stages for councils to make changes, to innovate, and councils will do this in myriad ways, big and small. But in order to make a change, they need to do 4 things. Identify a problem, identify a solution, test that solution, and then scale that solution. And at each of these steps, there's an opportunity for a failure. And if you hit any of these failures throughout this, you're not going to see that long and lasting change. So the problem might not be ID'd. A digital or cyber solution might not be found or bought into. The solution may not be tested properly. And even if tested, it may not reach that kind of scale. What we can then do is look at the systemic challenges that we talked about and see how those can play in at each of those points. So with each of these failures, it could be skills that's the challenge. We may not have the skills to find the problem, find the solution. We may not have the skills to test the solution, or we may not have the skills to scale it once it's tested. But equally, buy-in could play in here. We may not be bought into the problem. We may not be bought into the solution. We may not be bought into the pilot, and we may not be bought into scaling that pilot. And what this allows for us is to start to typologize the kinds of problems that councils are having. And of course, councils, there will be different pathways for different councils, but we're looking for those common things that stretch across that we can help with, unlock, and get enough detail for everybody to get a clear problem definition so that we can progress. So in terms of what's next, at the moment we're working on validating and understanding these systemic blockers that I've talked about. We're onboarding these 8 councils and looking with them at what are their challenges and how do they link back and where is the breakdown happening? Like, is it in the testing? Is it in the scaling? Is it in the buy-in? Is it in the skills? Then we're going to be focusing on shaping the pilot interventions and what we provide around that funding in order to help them to make that progress. Looking at learning across the cohort and how the 8 councils can learn from each other and tackle things together, and then focusing on the pathways which other councils can follow and pick up and kind of creating that broader impact. So thanks for listening. It's very early days for this, but would really love to chat to any of you. I'm going to be over there, and if you guys were running this, what would your ideas be? I'd love to hear from you all. So thanks very much.
goal. Awesome. Next up, we have another DLUHC connected project, but a much more mature one, and that in some ways kind of came out of these early local digital fund pots. And so Alastair's mic'd up. I'll hand you over to Alastair Parvin of Open Systems Lab, and I'll let him introduce the topic.
Thank you very much. I've never been described as mature before. Hi everyone, I'm Alastair from Open Systems Lab, and yeah, indeed, we're working with DLUHC and a growing group of councils on a thing called PlanX. The planning system, probably none of you need telling here, is really, really important, right? Like in a single decision, the planning system can make someone into a millionaire, and it will shape the future of a community for the next decades, possibly centuries, right? So quite rightly, we argue about it. But when we argue about it in politics, we tend to argue about what we plan. I think the most single transformative thing in planning that we're going to change in the next few years is actually how we plan, right? You probably also know that how we plan today isn't going so well. Right? The planning system is almost famous, actually, or infamous, for being incredibly opaque, incredibly hard to navigate. It suffers from what we often call the Donald Rumsfeld problem, which is that people don't know what they don't know. So it feels like kind of navigating in the dark. And this is a big deal. It's not just that this is a kind of bad experience for people. It means there's something structurally undemocratic about planning, because it's incredibly hard to participate in if you don't have money, if you don't have consultants, if you don't have knowledge. But the cost of that is also falling on planning authorities. So it's kind of lose-lose all the way around, right? So that we think around half of all planning applications, at least, that arrive into planning departments are invalid, for example. So huge amounts of failure demand is eating into planning departments' resources. So the solution isn't really news to anybody here, which is, hey guys, the web exists, right? Let's move from this old system. You know, this is no one's fault, right? It's just that the planning system was designed when its operating system was paper, basically, and we haven't really moved on. So we've got to move from documents to data. This isn't news to any of you here, right? We can all imagine what the future of that might feel like, right? Digital planning services that are simple to use, where all that knowledge that you'd need to go and look up or pay a consultant for is as much as possible is baked into these rules as code services. They're only asking you for relevant information, that are bringing the information to you. Things like this, which is a service we've built called the Find Out If You Need Planning Permission service. Guess what it does? You can go on and find out if you need planning permission. So it contains lots of this kind of knowledge inside it, is what's called using kind of rules as code. That's okay, fine. That in a way isn't radical, right? But planning is a particularly difficult domain to do this for, because when we look at the information in planning, we've got some problems. One, there's loads of it. There is loads of information in planning. Two, it keeps changing. Three, it's federated. So at any given time, what you can do to, say, your house or whatever it is affected by national policy and by local stuff all at once, right? And it all applies. And fourth, this, right? Which is, sure, all of that knowledge today exists in the hands of these people, and very few of them can code. So we're like, we're going to need a solution to this. And the solution that we started to work on was this. So it's called PlanX, which is a kind of provisional name that stuck around too long. Essentially, it's an open source tool. It's a kind of low-code platform where you can write these services as flowcharts. So you don't need to be to know how to code. You can just kind of build them, and councils can build services. They can also share services. So the bits that are the same for everybody, they don't need to reinvent the wheel. They can work collaboratively on these flowcharts. That's cool. We're working on it. Lots of cool stuff happening. But because you're all experts, I want to just finish by sort of skipping straight to the end bit and thinking, okay, this was the question that Linda put up on these slides, which is, okay, what's the impact going to be of this, maybe, beyond, hopefully, just making the planning services a heck of a lot better for users? And I think there's three really interesting potential impacts for councils, for local planning authorities. One is that they're going to need a lot of content designers because even if you can lower the threshold of coding, there is still a huge amount of skill in service design and in content design, and actually we need to be really building local government capacity. And we know, for example, that tools like PlanX are going to get used beyond planning, right? It could be used for all kinds of complex rules as code services, but it's going to need these skills. Two, hopefully planners will be able to spend more time planning. And this is a kind of open secret at the heart of planning today, is that most of what planners spend most of their time doing is not actually planning, it's development control. And actually it's not even development control, it's dealing with all the failure demand around development control and emails. So this is kind of cool, that hopefully we can allow planners to spend more time planning, but not just planning, right? Also, instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again on a case-by-case basis, actually moving more and more towards this idea of I don't know what the right phrase is for this, maybe some of you will know, sort of gardening or tending and maintaining and continuously improving these services based on user feedback and as legislation and policy changes. And the third thing, which I think is really interesting, is I think planning policy will begin to become clearer and more rules-based. So a lot of planning policies today, when you actually read them, they'll say really nebulous stuff like neighbourhood amenity must be considered. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't, like, it may as well not write anything at all. So I think hopefully what tools like this allows us to get rid of this dichotomy between cutting red tape and creating red tape, because actually you say, no, the policies can be as nuanced as you want them to be, because they're much easier to navigate, but actually planning policy makers can be much more precise about the outcomes that we actually want to see. And actually that's part of the quid pro quo, and that's good for people who are using the planning system, but I think it should also be good for planning outcomes, because it means that the expectations that the community has on development can actually need to be factored in upfront into the land prices instead of like being negotiated down later and things like that. So that is hopefully a very small glimpse into what the future of planning might be, and we'll see you all there. Thank you.
Okay, next up, thank you very, very much, Alastair. I feel like every local service has so much to learn from this intervention into planning in storytelling, you know, like being able to tell a story to a minister that excites them and that makes them see like, oh yeah, we do have to set a new target. And it's a nice transition to the next hopeful service area that might be able to start achieving what's being achieved for planning. I'm going to hand you over to Amy Bellamy, who is the project director for a project that I think Redbridge need huge kudos for allowing us to participate in, because they got DLUHC funding to fix Redbridge stuff, and then they realised the problem is that there's a lot of market failure happening, and we need to understand it better to have a clue how to go about mitigating. So very early doors, but Amy will set the scene.
Thank you. So yes, as Linda said, this is a Redbridge project, but it's DLUHC funded, and it's looking across the whole ecosystem. So the problem that we're facing, so social housing is crucial. There's over 4 million households in social housing in the UK, and the providers of social housing have a whole bunch of stuff that they need to do. They manage an enormous number of properties compared to private landlords, private individual landlords. And they have regulatory responsibilities, compliance responsibilities. They need to make that housing fit to live in, maintain it, repair it, keep track of what's in it so that they know when stuff is going to need replacing. And there's massive demand for that housing, so they need to turn it over quickly when someone moves out and get someone new in without wasting time. Technology should make this easier. This is a space that's already been digitized. There is already technology in this space. Technology should be simple and straightforward. There should be a single source of truth for your housing stock, knowing which houses a local authority actually manages and owns, knowing who's living in them, knowing what stuff is inside those houses. There should be simple and straightforward reporting. There should be accessible self-service interfaces for residents to communicate with their landlord. You should be able to schedule jobs and assign them to your staff and get them done in appropriate time with those staff having the right tools for that. And then with all of those things, you should also be able to start looking at things like predictive analytics. When is stuff going to break? Spotting patterns in what's going to break and what needs repairing. You should be able to look at smart sensors for things like damp so that you can get on top of these things before they become big issues. And you should be able to look at things like chatbots, AI, augmented reality. Are there fun things that we could be doing in this space as well? But at the moment, as you've heard from several of the previous talks, there's a whole lot of issues that local authorities are facing in this space. Technology at the moment isn't making things easier. There's a whole lot of interconnected issues. Councils especially have a lot of old infrastructure, on-premises technology that is holding them back, systems that have not been upgraded for a long time, so they're not running the latest versions, and that again holds them back. They've customized things a lot of the time. There's custom interfaces. Every council thinks that they are unique and have unique needs, and so have customized things on top, which also makes it harder to upgrade or to move to a new system. And all of this means that there is actually limited self-service. There is poor UX. There's a lot of manual processes impacting staff and conflicting data sources, so that you don't have one source of truth for even so much as like what houses you own. So why are councils stuck? That is the aim of the project, to understand what are the different factors, particularly factors in the market. There are, as I just showed, like lots of interconnected issues, and there is no simple answer. There is a legacy of change and a legacy of technology debt that has accumulated in councils. But there are also market issues. There is a sense that there isn't enough choice out there, and that councils are feeling locked into the systems they've got, and in this endless cycle of renewing something that isn't necessarily meeting all of their needs. So what we're doing on this project is trying to map out all of those issues and identify whether there are places that central government could intervene to affect that, to change the incentives, whether that is for councils or for the suppliers. To change the incentives, to shift the market dynamics so that they are able to effectively meet needs, and that councils are able to move on to good systems that do everything they should, get the basics right, and then start looking at more interesting emerging technology. So what we're doing in this project, we are putting together a benefits case to look at, what are the hidden costs in this space, and show that there is actually a need for some level of intervention. We're trying to create that vision, again collaboratively, create a vision for what should housing technology look like and what should a healthy market look like. And we are also trying to give a prioritised list of interventions. So what are some things that could be done? What would the impact they might have be? And what negative consequences might there be of that as well? So giving some indication of where intervention could be possible and what is worth doing. And those of you in this room can help. As you probably know by now, we're going to get you all into groups after these talks. We do want to hear from local authorities and from providers as well, to understand the challenges people are facing, and also so those costs and the vision for the future. So we want lots of input on what that could look like. We also have our first show and tell as a project on the 4th of May. If you would like to come along, let me know and we'll add you to the invite. And that is it from me. Please come for questions afterwards.
Okay, and last but definitely not least, many of you have heard about Outpost. It is one of the many community directory projects out there, and one that's super eager to be as aligned with those out there as possible. So Hannah, one of the experts on the project, will now tell you as much as she can in 5 minutes and invite you all to keep collaborating. I'll hand you over. You're good.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try and control 2 at once. Right.
It's nice to meet everyone. My name's Hannah. I'm an engineer here at TPXimpact, and I'm going to talk to you today about Outpost and the Outpost platform. So Outpost itself was originally developed back in 2019 with Buckinghamshire Council, and more recently we've been working with Greenwich, who secured funding through the local digital fund to create a reusable community directory product. So what is Outpost? It's a web application. It's built to do one thing, and it does one thing well, I hope. It allows staff and service providers to manage their own data, so no need for people to log into council systems. And it uses Open Referral UK, which is an open data standard, which I'll talk about in a bit. And it's designed to work alongside other systems. And it's free, and it's community driven. So Outpost, the web application, the service management system, is actually part of a wider platform, the Outpost platform. It's a suite of applications, tools, resources, and we're also building a community around it to solve those common problems. We found that everybody has those same basic problems, and then the rest of the platform will allow you to create bespoke solutions to solve everybody's needs. The two core applications are Outpost and then the Outpost API. And this API opens up a lot of possibilities to integrate with new or existing systems. You can see here some of the examples that I've put in. The main use at the moment is service directories, but you could also use the data in chatbots, in AI, microsites, social media and marketing, even call centres. And also you can integrate with other outposts in the future, I hope. So as I mentioned, we originally worked with Buckinghamshire, and originally the problem was that councils were storing lots of data, but they were storing lots of the same data. And data tended to stay within organisational structures. Short-term solutions lead to that dreaded spreadsheet directory. And without dedicated support, that data becomes out of date very, very quickly. But also that organisational awareness of where the data is becomes fragmented. If someone goes on holiday, nobody knows which version. Is it version 1, version 1.2? And you don't know which ones are the active ones, which ones have been updated. And most recently, with our work with Greenwich, we've identified sort of a catch-22 situation around service directories. Residents don't know about directories, don't trust them. Perhaps they can't find the data, or it's out of date. Service providers don't feel incentivised to update the content because nobody's using those directories. And councils struggle to maintain that data. And they spend a lot of time and expertise keeping those listings up to date. And obviously all of this is made worse if the tools aren't in place. So how does Outpost try to solve some of these problems? Outpost is built around its users. So the main three users are the service providers, the administrators, and of course the residents. Each user group has their own interface, which is designed for them, and it uses recognisable GovUK patterns. And I'm going to try and do a very quick tour. Come to Station 5 afterwards to have a proper demo, but this is the Outpost admin interface. This is what the council staff will see. This is the slightly different version of the same interface. This is for service providers. They have the sort of more familiar step-by-step GovUK pattern. It's very hard to show a screenshot of an API, but this is the API. That's how you do it. And this is Scout. So Scout is one of the applications as part of the platform. It's kind of like a quick start directory. It gives you everything you need out of the box that all directories have. So what are the benefits of Outpost? We can give residents useful results. We can reduce data duplication within local authorities and hopefully kill off some of those dreadful spreadsheets. And longer term, we can start to connect data together and sort of move outside of those council boundaries. I mentioned open referral and open data standards, and I just wanted to quickly talk about what they are and why everyone should adopt them. A data standard is just a set of rules that allow systems to talk to each other using a common language. And why you would want to adopt them: the data is portable, so organisations can exchange information without manual processes. It's cost effective. You can save money by not developing your own solutions each time. And if something doesn't work for you, you can contribute back. It increases innovation. You can combine two different systems that might previously not have been able to talk to each other and come up with new and creative possibilities. It improves data quality. You can rely on the data that you get from other organisations. It increases transparency and engagement. Making information public helps build trust and it increases engagement. And you can combine that data and identify patterns. And it reduces vendor lock-in. You can use the right tools when you need them without having to wait to have them available to you. And yes, if you'd like to find out more about Outpost, our website is the best place to go. If there isn't anything on there, let me know and I will add it. I'm trying to make it the most comprehensive website about Outpost as I can. Please join our community. Even if you're not interested in doing your service directories, if you're not interested right now in it, we're trying to learn as much as we can from everybody's experiences, and everybody is welcome. We have regular meetups, we have show and tells, and we do have a discussion board online forum. If you'd like to see more, I'm happy to give a demo today. I can demo at another time if you want to arrange something. And obviously, if you'd like to work with TPXimpact, we'd love to work with you too. Thank you very much.
I think that's it, everyone. Thanks, Hannah, for saving us. We almost had a meetup without an API screenshot. Without further ado, thanks so much for coming. A big shout out, by the way, to Nikki Lowe. She's there at the back of the room in the master suite, without whom this would have definitely not happened, and not at such a great budget as well. She went to Costco and got the best prices and everything. we still think like civil servants when budgeting for meetups. So thank you, and thank you all for coming, and bring all your friends next time, and tell us if you have any exciting projects that you want to share notes on. Go get a drink. And then in 5 minutes, if you've got mojo on hump day, clockwise around the room. So in order of people having spoken, speaker one, so Pippa, can hear your thoughts on what's next for the local digital declaration, and really importantly for this community in all of its manifestations. Future councils, yeah, on point 2, and then over at point 3, can everyone remember what this is? Alastair, PlanX. 4 at the very back will be Amy and Rowan and anyone else from that team who's working on the housing research. And finally, Outpost community directories, point 5. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll shut up.